People can still come in if they like, but we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a nice presentation for you all about the National Youth Gathering. I'm Addie. I'm the Director of Youth Ministries here for, I think I know everybody, and I hope you know me. I went with Jen and Pastor Julie with a bunch of our youth to the National Youth Gathering. If you guys can all just stand up, say hi real quick.
Hi.
These are our youth that went on the trip, and you'll get to hear a little bit of their stories as we get started here. So we're going to start with a quick video.
No, it's not. It's a beautiful skylight. For those who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Marvin. I've been involved with the youth group for many years. This was my third trip, but my second youth gathering. I had the opportunity to go to Detroit a few years ago, and then I got to go again this year to Houston. And it's really a unique opportunity to work with these kids, take this trip, and watch them, grow in their faith, grow in their friendships, meet new people, go to new places, experience new churches, and it was such a wonderful time to watch them grow and have their friendships grow on the way. But then when you get to the National Youth Gathering, it's that aha moment of, I'm not just some kind of geeky, churchy kid that goes to church on Sunday and the Bible study on Monday, because sometimes they can feel that way amongst their peers. But all of a sudden you go to this National Youth Gathering with 30,000 other kids their age, all there to celebrate their faith, all there to listen to these amazing speakers, which we got an opportunity to hear from some amazing young people. I mean, we had a speaker as young as Owen, a teenage young man who was 19, 20 years old, and hear of their life experiences and realize that we're not alone in our faith journey. Grace is an amazing thing. And it really was just such a blessing for me to be able to go and be a part of it with these kids and experience it, yes as a mom, but more as kind of an observer of their faith journey and their growth, and what a milestone. One of the other things that we did this year, which was a little bit different, is after every day of the youth gathering, we had a Bible study every night, but after the youth gathering, it was a great opportunity for us to have conversations about the different speakers that were at the youth gathering, and it allowed these kids to really voice their feelings and their opinions about some tricky subjects and how their friends felt about them. And then we got to help them, guide them through some discussions from the adult perspective, and it was just such Pastor Julie was with us as well. So it was really an amazing opportunity, an amazing experience. I think we all come away from it just changed a little bit for the better for all of us. I'm unique in that I didn't grow up in a church environment, so for me this was so new. I wish I could have done it as a youth. So I'm so glad that they got to go, and I really feel blessed that I had the opportunity to go with them. And although my daughter graduated this year, I could see myself going again to Minneapolis in 3 years. So if you ever get a chance to go and visit one yourselves, it is definitely worth the experience, because no matter what age you are, you walk into the stadium of 30,000 people, and the energy is phenomenal, and you just come away with such a renewed love of God, of life, of faith, of grace, and our future. Because you listen to the news, this is our future. This is not just our future, but this is our now. So, and it really was, this changes everything. It was an amazing motto. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Yes?
Just before you start, I was at the Fellowship of Christian Athletes gathering of high school kids, 1,100 of them at UCLA this summer. And I sat in there, and there was an unbelievable energy, and it was at exactly the same time that our kids were in Houston, and I was sitting there thinking, how in the world can you multiply this by 30? And just...
And it is being in that big of a crowd is a little daunting, and you think, how do they manage all this? And the ELC does an amazing job of really developing a program to allow these kids to explore a lot about God and Jesus and faith and grace and hope, and we're going to go more into it. So thank you.
Hi, good morning. Hi. I'm going to be talking about our trip to Houston, which was 4 days, I think. Yeah, I think it was 4 days. We started Saturday morning and left at a pretty decent time. And right after we left the church, we were headed straight on our 2-week journey that was going to be long. Our first big stop was at Grand Canyon University in Arizona. We got to attend the Elevate Music Festival, which is a Christian music festival, like mostly alternative music, but Christian alternative music. Chandler got to see one of her favorite artists, which was awesome. And it was pretty filled, but you could get down to the floor. So when we got down to the floor, there was this guy who was dancing like no one was watching. The spirits were moving him. And he taught us some of my new favorite dance moves.
Are you going to demonstrate those, Abby?
So there was punch the devil in the face, and he would just, throw hands the whole time. And then there was make yourself in a box and keep the evil out. So those were the good ones. He was an interesting character to begin with, but definitely by the end of our trip we were like, that guy just taught us so much, like in a dance move. Like he was living his life. He was feeling the faith. So yeah, love that. That night we ended up at All Saints Lutheran Church in Phoenix.
It's my old church.
We love your church.
A beautiful church. It is. The sanctuary has these figures in it that were like coming from the ceiling. There's skylights. There's everything. It was beautiful. They blessed us in their Sunday service, and it was like moving. I loved it so much. It was so sweet of them. But later that day, we ended up going to White Sands National Monument in New Mexico. This is my favorite state, New Mexico. From this trip, I learned New Mexico is amazing. This national monument, if you ever get a chance to go, I highly recommend. The sand is pure white and soft as, I don't know, very soft sand. Sadly, we didn't get there until probably about an hour before the park was closing. So we only got to see the sunset, but this sunset was like breathtaking, and this entire park was just beautiful. We only got to get only a little bit into the park. We weren't even in the most pure parts of the white sands, and it was still like, as you can see in the pictures, the sand is like white, actually white. Sometimes they say it's white, but it's not. It's actually white sand. And we were just like playing music. We were supposed to go through the park, but we ended up stopping and just playing music and dancing around and having a good time for an hour. Yeah, as you can see, we were all having an amazing time blasting our music, just like walking around these dunes. And it was an amazing experience.
Practicing our new dance moves.
Oh yes. Punching the devil. That night we ended up in a campground called Oliver Lee Memorial State Park. We had to take quite a long road to get there. It was a little concerning for most of us because you couldn't see the end of it until you got to the end of it, which was our campsite. And then the end of it was the mountains. So we were right next to these mountains, and it was beautiful once we could see it in the morning. But it was like literally dead end of the city, dead end of anywhere you could go past the mountains pretty much. We slept in tents that night, woke up, tried to see the sunrise, but the mountains were blocking it. That day, we headed to Sonora Caverns in Texas. We picked up Pastor Julie that day. And we went to this place called Gypsy Chicks, which is that picture in the center. And it was like a store of like these handmade metal objects. I bought one myself, a cactus about like this big, just made of metal. And it's painted. It's like, perfect. I love it so much. And this place was just super cool. It was like really out of nowhere, kind of. It was like the only store besides food in this area. And Gunnar, see on the right-hand side, there's a hill going into the campsite. And Gunnar got to skateboard down that, which was his favorite part. And then at night we hung up our hammocks and slept the night away-ish. Most of us were awake because it was really cold. But it was a really great night because it was like, in Texas you expect it to be super hot and like kind of dry. This one little park, the Caverns, it was like trees and greens and deers and lots of animals all around.
Peacocks, yeah.
Peacocks, yes, there were peacocks there. But after we went to sleep, we woke up the next day and we got to actually tour the caverns that we were at. And in these caverns, there was lots of like salt formations and stuff like that. It was really cool. It was like 200 feet deep at its deepest point, so that was breathtaking. And it was a really cool experience. It was probably, I've been in a couple of like caves. This was a whole new level of cave. Cavern. It was so beautiful and so amazing. After our tour in the caverns, we ended up heading to Texas, where we stopped in Fredericksburg, Texas to get lunch, which was really good. And they had a couple of those murals around town. And then we stopped in Austin, Texas later that day to get ice cream and stuff to prepare us for the National Youth Gathering.
I bought some coffee and forgot to get it. Now I'll forget that.
So I get the pleasure to talk to you guys about the National Youth Gathering. This is us wearing our matching t-shirts. Lois. And we're headed off to start the day at the Space Center. We got the amazing opportunity to visit the Houston Space Center, and it was amazing seeing these ships. Like this right here, it was like 10 times that size. And just seeing that in person, you see all these spaceships in movies, and you don't really expect to, one person sitting in that going all the way up to space. So it was pretty amazing. That was a great community opportunity thing that we got to do, and also getting there and seeing all the other churches there kind of hyping you up for the gathering. So day one, me, myself, Becca, and Abby, we were all at the previous youth gathering in Detroit, and we knew that the biggest thing in these youth gatherings is to get on the floor. Because when you're on the floor, you can see everything around you, you're by the stage, you can go up and dance. So we got there an hour early to stand in this mass group of people of 30,000, waiting in this 90-degree humidity to get into that stadium. And we got so good at it that by the end of the week, we had runners to go in and save our seats. We had people jumping over bushes. It was insane. So we reached the floor for day one, and that really started a good impression for the first night of the youth gathering. As you can see, all the lights, that was amazing, especially from the floor to see. It was surrounding in lights. The next day was our Synod Day. We all got these really awesome t-shirts that were supposed to look like the LA Dodgers, and we could actually use them for the Dodger Stadium night, the Lutheran night. And so Synod Day, everyone in our Synod gathered in a hotel ballroom, and we had a nice service. Guy Irwin was there, and we also, all of us have, notice how we all have all these bracelets? There's some over here, and every single church brought stuff with them. One of them made a cool one that looked like a Coachella music festival ticket. And so it was awesome. Always some other people made stuff from chips of wood. The thing that Gunnar is holding, someone drew that and was handing out to people. So everyone was sharing their gifts and their talents, and you're connecting with all these other churches, which is really fun. And at the end of the day, we tried to see who could collect the most bracelets. But by the end of the week, it was all sweaty and gross by the end. So we got rid of it. Every night we attended a mass gathering, and this was throughout the whole week. And again, that's when we're running to get there, and there was inspirational speakers and great musicians just sharing the Word of God.
Okay. Hi, my name is Chandler, and I was a sophomore when I was on this trip. I'm now a junior, but I'm going to be talking about our service day, which was, I think it was the third day in Texas. And so something really cool that Addie had us do for the trip was to write a blog every day so everyone back home could read about our day, and that you can just get all your thoughts out onto, like write out all your thoughts, basically like a journal kind of. And so for the gathering, we had people volunteer to do the blog instead of a sign. And by the end of this day, I decided that I wanted to write the blog that day. And this was our service day in Houston, and we found out earlier from past groups when we were at NASA actually, that other people had gone to libraries or schools and painted murals and organized books and stuff. So considering the heat, we were praying that we were inside somewhere. So we got to the hotel where we were supposed to meet at the buses at 7:15, and then the buses were about 2 hours late, unfortunately, and that took away from our time that we could serve. But at around 9:30, we found out where we were going, and we went to the largest Buddhist temple in Houston, and that little monk right there was the sweetest person I think I've ever met in my entire life. He was just so welcoming to us, and he genuinely wanted to talk to us, and he was so appreciative and thankful that we were there. He just kept saying thank you and thank you, and it was really cool to have conversations with him and just help him make his temple more beautiful, especially after the hurricane. Half of our group was cleaning up some of the hurricane residue, and the other half was doing garden work. And so that was really cool. And Abby pointed out later that night that he had told her that in their Hindu religion, they have a saying that's very similar to God's work, our hands. And it made us all kind of realize that even though we may all come from different religions, it's God working through us to make the world a better place. So I thought that was really cool to be able to talk to him and talk about our religion and his religion and see how they're different and even how they're similar. And then later that day after our service trip, we just went back to the hotel to relax a little bit because there was a heat warning out that day, and we've been outside for a couple of hours, so we were all very tired and wanted to save our energy for the mass gathering at night, like Maya had talked about previously. And at the beginning of the trip, I found out that one of my favorite Christian artists, Torrin Wells, was performing. And I was really excited, so I was very determined to get onto the floor that day. And I was stressed out the whole time waiting in line. There was so many people. You can think about 30,000 people in your head, but when you see it, it's completely different. And when you're all trying to get into one place, it's just overwhelming. And so I was very thankful that we were able to get onto the floor that night. And it was just such an emotional experience for me because when I first started coming back to Senior Luther League, I was very separated from my faith, and I think this trip just made it more verified to me how much I wanted a connection with God, and just I found out that I really love doing service for people and worshiping through music, and this day was kind of just like a combination of all of those things together. And the speakers were just amazing. Pastor Nadia had an amazing sermon that just had everyone on their feet, like a rising ovation, what's it called? Standing ovation. A standing ovation at the very end. And she was just incredible, talking about how labels can't confine you and that God's grace allows you to do anything when you have God's grace, you can do anything. And the theme for that day was that God's grace changes everything. And there was also another man who was actually a friend of Pastor Julie's, and he had went through some issues with self-harm. And I think Pastor Julie talked about this in one of her sermons when we came back, but he went to a pastor and they told him in 4 words that he was going to hell. And then he was very separated from the church, and then finally he decided to go back to the church, and he went to another pastor, and that pastor is what really changed it for him and said that there's grace for that, and grace can help you through anything, and with God's grace you are forgiven, and all you need to do is live through Him in His name. And so overall, this was just my favorite day, and I wanted to share it with you guys because it had such an impact on me. And I was overall very excited for the gathering because I heard stories from all the other seniors and people who had gone previously, and I just think this day had the most impact on me, and I wanted to share it.
When I think of Jesus, I wonder why a person might go up to Jesus and speak to him. And most people I bring it up here, they say it's charisma, and then few say it's wisdom or like a medicine man. So I'm wondering, did people sort of get magnetically drawn to him and wanted to talk to him?
He actually came to us once we got there, so that's the group, and it had about 3 or 4 different churches that came with us. He made an effort to go out and truly thank all the people for being there, and I think that was something that we were like, wow, we truly can be this larger community, not even divided by our specific religions, but the fact that he came to us and said, thank you, I'm so grateful for you being here, that we were just like, it made us want to be better servants to him and for what he wanted us to do.
Was he quiet? Was he quiet and gentle?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a quiet
Very
observer
quiet.
and just caring and
He was a great guy. He went around like saying his thank yous, and he went up to our group specifically. We were working on the fences, picking up like a lot of debris from the hurricane, and he was just like in his element, you know, trying to show his love as best as he could because he did not necessarily speak fluently. He tried his hardest, he really was, but it was not always connecting. And then I was in conversation with him, and all he said was, Buddha's work our hands. And I was like, in that moment for me, I was like, it all makes sense. Like, we're all trying to do the same things. We're all having the same goals. We're just trying to please our God and follow Jesus and follow His work in our ways. And that day, like, I think everyone that was on this trip felt the service day, and that man was moving.
And even if he didn't say much, you can just tell by the presence and the way he carried himself. He was so happy that we were all there. Like, genuinely, he wanted, if we needed anything, he was like, here's the Wi-Fi, here's some water. Like, please, like, stay hydrated. He got us, like, all gloves. He was doing a lot of work outside. He was just like, he didn't even have to say anything, and we could all see, like, in his face and his emotions and in his spirit, how grateful he was that we were there, and it just made it all the difference to us and made us want to work even harder. Back to Margaret.
So the next day was our interactive learning day, and this was the day that we can meet up with colleges. So I got to CCLU, and we had, this was an awesome day because to help. And if you go to the next few slides, you'll see, hair donation. So Walty, was it 3 years ago was the last youth gathering?
Yeah.
He did this hair donation. And, his hair wasn't long enough.
He wanted to.
He wanted to, but he wasn't able to. So he was like, I'm going to grow my hair, and for this youth gathering, I'm going to get it cut. And so that's exactly what he did. After 3 years of growing it out, those beautiful curls. And we also had Abby, Jack, and Jen donate blood. And at the end of the gathering, these are the statistics of everything that was given. For closing worship, this was the day that really spoke out to me the most. So earlier I was talking about how when we were standing on the floor and you look up around you and you see all these lights. You know, there's patches of lights because not everyone is using their flashlight. But the guy that was speaking in his closing prayer, he asked us all, this was the day of hope. So every day there was a different message, you know. The first day was God's call changes everything, God's love changes everything, God's grace changes everything, and God's hope changes everything. And for God's hope at the end, he asked everyone to take out their phones. So, you know, he's really connecting to the youth. So everyone always has their phones, so I'll take out our phones. And they said to
We have them
you know,
too.
we can do that. They all take out their phones, and he asked us to text one person saying, "May God hold you in a grip of hope." And just randomly text someone that. And after you're done, turn off your phone, but put on your flashlight and put it up in the air. And of course, everyone wanted to take part in this, so everyone did. And the whole room lit up. And it was as if all of these 30,000 teenagers were sending out a beacon of hope into the world. And that, you know, we aren't just the future, but we are now. And, you know, we can change so much. And just by sending out that message, that really hit home. And it was a beautiful way to close out this whole week because it really embodied everything. And, you know, it really embodied what we were there for. And that was to spread our hope, to spread our love, to spread grace. And something that was interesting about the Grace Day is the guy, he mentioned to us, he said that we don't have to earn God's grace, it's already given to us. And so just knowing that and knowing that we can spread our love and we can spread our hope that we can change everything. And that was the main message of this week, and it was a really inspirational one. And I was really happy to be a part of it. And yeah, that was the closing on our youth gathering.
Hi everybody, I'm Jack. I'm here to tell you about the way home. So our first day we had left the parking lot in Houston and headed to Wichita Falls where we stayed at Faith Lutheran Church, and they welcomed us with a home cooked meal which was amazing. We hadn't had one I think the whole trip yet, so it was much needed. They made us chili and it was delicious. And like halfway through our meal, we had noticed the sunset was just breathtaking. So we stopped eating, everybody stopped eating, and we went outside and took some pictures with the sunset and just watched it and experienced the Texas sky, which is actually like really beautiful. I had always just thought that was something that they like said in the movies or whatever, but it's really, really pretty. It's like, I don't know what about it makes it so beautiful, but it's just so clean and it was one of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing. And we were just sitting in a parking lot in the church. It was beautiful. So then we woke up the next day and made our way towards New Mexico. But Addie surprised us with a trip to Cadillac Ranch, which is, as you can see, a bunch of half-buried old Cadillacs that some artists from San Francisco just made this ranch as like an active art exhibit, I guess. So you can go and spray paint these Cadillacs, you just, whatever you want on it.
Oh, cool.
So Addie got us 2 cans of spray paint, but everybody ended up getting them, because when you're there, everybody's just like, oh, we're leaving, here, take the rest of our paint. Like, it was so nice. So we spent like an hour there just having fun. It was so much fun. It was an awesome surprise. So from there, we headed to Santa Rosa, New Mexico, where we camped, and there was a lake near our campground, which was beautiful. It was pretty nice weather when we got there, so everybody decided that they wanted to go swimming. So we went swimming like an hour before sunset, and during the time we were swimming, the sun had started setting, and it was beautiful again. So it was another beautiful sunset that night. And then everybody crawled into their tents and their hammocks, and then we woke up the next morning and made our way to the Blue Hole in Santa Rosa, which was like 15 minutes from our campground. And the Blue Hole, in the next pictures, as you can see, people are jumping off, but in these pictures you can see that it goes down 100 some odd feet, and you can't tell where the bottom is because it's so clear. You can just keep seeing, and it's the most clean and beautiful water. Like you can see right here, it just keeps going forever. It's so beautiful. So everybody took turns jumping off the rock and swimming, and mind you, it's about 100 degrees outside, but the water is like 60. So it was really nice. It was like so refreshing. It's like the opposite of a jacuzzi. It was really nice. So everybody swam and just kind of got refreshed and ready for the day, and then we made our way to Flagstaff, where we stayed at Shepherd of the Hills Lutheran Church. And Flagstaff is a really cool place because you drive all the way through desert, and then all of a sudden you're in the mountains. And I didn't know there was mountains in Arizona until I got there, and it was amazing. So some of us were able to set up our hammocks outside and sleep outside that night. But after we had like settled in at the church, it was laundry day, so we made our way to the laundromat and did our laundry, and then made our way to dinner. And Addie took us to like a nicer sit down, like authentic Mexican dinner, and it was delicious. So then we had a good meal, and then we got a good night's sleep because the next day was 4th of July. So we woke up and we went to the 4th of July parade in Flagstaff, like downtown Flagstaff, where we watched the parade, and Syl turned herself into her own float and walked in the parade. And it was awesome. People were passing out candy and water and juice boxes, and there was a puppy float, so we got to see a bunch of puppies. And so we stayed there for like 2 hours. You could see a little piece of this church in the corner. We were just parked right outside this beautiful, like old brick church with these red doors. It was really pretty, excuse me. So that was amazing. It was just really cool to see like the whole city of Flagstaff just come together, and it was really awesome. So then from there we went to Slide Rock National State Park in Sedona, which was about 40 minutes from Flagstaff. And as you can see right here, I don't know if you saw in the video all the people sliding down, but it starts up here and everybody just slides down through the water, and then down there is like an actual swimming hole. So everybody was swimming and sliding and jumping into the water, and it was so much fun. We spent, I don't even know how long there, hours just swimming and playing and having, it was so much fun. And you can see everything's just red and beautiful. You're in this canyon and you're looking up, and it's mountains and trees, and it's so beautiful. So from there we made our way to our campsite in Sedona, which is Cave Springs Campground, which is in the forest of Arizona, which I didn't know was a thing until I got there. And I was so surprised. It was beautiful. And everybody set up their hammocks and their tents, and then we decided to, instead of going to watch fireworks that night, because there was it was like a dry warning or something, that the fireworks were not expected to happen, so we just decided to head into Flagstaff and just explore the town instead of going and maybe seeing a fireworks show, which didn't even end up happening. So we made the right choice, and we just walked around Flagstaff. We did our own thing for dinner. It was really nice. So it was just a really great 4th of July overall. So then after that, we made our way back to the campground, and everybody was pretty tired, so we just went to bed and then woke up, and I had woken up, I had like popped my head out, and this was the day that Gunnar was leaving. Wasn't even dark, or wasn't even light out yet. Gunnar was taking down his hammock. Addie had the van started up, and then I woke up in the morning and there was donuts and Addie. And no Gunnar, but there was donuts. So so after we just kind of took our time in the campsite. It was so pretty. Everybody just kind of took their time to take down their hammocks and just enjoy where we were. And then we drove up the canyon a little bit, and we camped somewhere down in here. So we went up to the top and looked out over everything, which was beautiful. And there was kind of like a little farmer's market set up right there with the Navajo Indians. They made like jewelry and stuff. Abby actually got like a matching piece of jewelry that she had gotten jewelry there a couple years back. So it was really cool just for everybody to be able to like see that. And then from there, we went to the Grand Canyon, which was really cool because I don't know who's been to the Grand Canyon, but you drive in and you're just in a parking lot in the middle of the desert, and you're like, where's the canyon? There's no canyon. So we walked around, went to the gift shop. I was like, okay, there's a gift shop. Where's the canyon? So we walked up this big hill. It was so hot out, and then you just walk out and there's that, and it's just forever. It feels so unreal. It looks like a painting. And then we just lost track of time there. We stayed there and just took all the sights in. We just kind of split up and just went and saw everything. It was amazing. So we just kind of took it all in, and then enjoyed the gift shop and just the amazing views. It was really unreal. It was a beautiful place. So from there, we made our way to Kingman, where we stayed at Grace Lutheran Church, and we had lost our male to female proportion, so we had a girls' night that night. We did makeovers and facials. It was great. They made us another home-cooked meal, which was really good. What did we have? Lasagna. It was awesome. So then we watched a rom-com and everybody did their nails. It was great. We were pretty tired by this time too. It's the second to last night, so had to do what you had to do. So we woke up the next morning, and then Addie surprised us with a trip to Lake Havasu because it was so hot in the desert. It was like 120 degrees. So it was so nice to just go and cool off and swim and just play and just enjoy each other's company. It was really, really nice. So we stayed there for like 2 hours, and then went to In-N-Out because we were now close enough to California to get In-N-Out. And then from there we went to Joshua Tree, which was beautiful, but so hot. It was, at 11 o'clock at night, it was 95 degrees. It was warm. So we didn't really sleep that night. We just everybody set up their tents and just laid there. Miles and I slept outside on the tables because it was too hot to go in the tent. So it was an experience, but it was beautiful. And after that, we packed up the van and we made our way home, and that was that. But it was amazing. It was like 3 different vacations put into one, because the way there is just, you're going really quick because you have to get to the National Youth Gathering, but you're so excited, and it's just like, it's like its own little vacation. And then you get there and the National Youth Gathering feels like, it's 5 days, but it feels like so much more because you're moving the whole time. You're just constantly going, but it's so amazing. And then the way home, Addie really took the time to just make it like a road trip, and it was so much fun. It was so awesome, and it really did change everything. It was so great.
Okay, so while I've been involved in numerous things throughout my high school career, my favorite is the work that I've done here within Ascension with all of these amazing people. I grew up going to church and knowing the value that it has in one's life, but I finally realized how important it was in my life the summer going into my freshman year. This was the year I joined my high school youth group and was able to go to my first ELCA National Youth Gathering in Detroit, Michigan. I was nervous because I had never been a part of something so monumental, but I quickly realized how passionate I was about the church. My church was one of among thousands of congregations and 30,000 people who attended this gathering. Being among thousands of people may not seem monumental, but when we got together to talk about injustice and poverty, it became unstoppable. Through these 4 days, I got to hear from speakers of all ages, work in the city of Detroit, and directly meet people whose lives were being changed from our work. This year, I had the privilege to go to my second National Youth Gathering in Houston, Texas. At the first National Youth Gathering, I realized I wanted to be a devoted follower and truly focus on my relationship with God. But in Houston, everything changed. Throughout this National Youth Gathering, I heard God during each talk, each activity, each service. This was my sign that I needed to do more. I realized through this National Youth Gathering that I do not need to wait to change the world until I'm older. I have the power and the voice to do it now. I realized that it doesn't take being surrounded by thousands of people to spark my passion for ministry. All I need is God. The opportunity that my church has provided me with is something that will stay with me forever. So thank you all for coming and listening to our National Youth Gathering that truly changed everything. So now, let's have everyone come up, and if you guys have any questions that you want us to answer, feel free.
Now we'll be here to talk if you want to talk. Usually there's like little
Yeah, we have a bunch of stuff that you
artifacts.
can look at over here if you want.
Artifacts.
They're like artifacts. They're like there's little like things we picked up on the way that like may not mean a lot to other people, but they have a story behind each of them. So thank you all for coming.
I have a question, actually for each one of you. What was your biggest surprise that you saw along the way?
Surprise.
In a couple words, let's start with you, Jack, and go that way.
Like,
From the trip or the gathering?
okay, I don't really have like something that was a big surprise because it was my second National Youth Gathering as well. So I would have to say like something that sticks out to me is the difference that 3 years makes. Like, because I went there as like, honestly, the first National Youth Gathering, my mom had to convince me to go on. I just didn't really want to go. I wasn't really friends with anybody in the youth group at the time. And I will forever be grateful for going on that. Like, it literally changed my life, but not for like the reasons that you would expect. Like, it was just kind of reaffirmed my faith again. And then over the past 3 years, it's like grown so much. And then I've just become like really involved in the youth group. And then going and to another youth gathering and be able to actually experience it as somebody who is really faithful, it really just made me realize that I need to be in the church. Like I need to work in the church, I need to stay in the church. The church is where I belong because that's where everything good comes from. And so it just really just reaffirmed my faith.
Something that surprised me. I think I would just like, I am a person that like, I feel most connected to the service when there's music happening. So I truly just appreciated all of the musicians that were there, and that was something that I like didn't really 100% was like, that's my favorite part of the service, but really at the National Youth Gathering, hearing everyone sing, hearing everyone be a part of it, that was something that I was like, wow, this is so much more powerful than I thought.
For me, it was my second National Youth Gathering, and the first one, we got on the floor almost every night because it was kind of
not that the other national youth gatherings previous to these last two were not as big. It was just, I felt like it was a lot of new people coming in for some reason. They were all unexperienced like us. This national youth gathering, everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone was trying to get on the floor. Everyone knew what they wanted. Everyone wanted to be there. And so that was kind of surprising because in Detroit, yes, we were all there for the same reasons, but it was almost like still in that time where 3 years ago sounds like not that long ago, but in those 3 years, people are a lot more comfortable in themselves. Kids actually verbalize that they go to church. They don't feel embarrassed or think that it's like an outcast kind of look because you go to church every Sunday or you're in a youth group. So this year, it was just surprising to see everyone really confident in themselves, confident in their faith, able to share it like nobody's business, and just really living the best way.
Well, my surprising thing was going to add on to that and saying how, all these Lutherans, we're all great people. And you would think that, we're there for God and to listen to all these amazing speakers, and you would think that everyone going down, trying to get down to the floor would be like, oh yeah, here you go, oh yeah, oh no. We got yelled at like 5 times. I was like, I just tried to.
I almost got trampled. I had knee surgery like 2 months before, so I was still in a brace. I was just like.
Like someone fell on their face. It wasn't good.
She got back up and she was
No, she was
running.
fine. It just surprised me because, it's interesting. It's very different. There's literally a 5-minute gap between everyone there to worship God and everyone trying to get on the floor.
It's like people turn into completely different people, and then once they're in their seats, they're back to being Lutheran again.
I had to be one of the runners because I had been to a national youth gathering before, so we sent runners to go ahead of the group, just push through people, get to the front. And I had this adult man with his children, yell at me in front of like a group of people, just being like, "You're so petty," like trying to cut through all these people. And at this point, I think it was like the one time I was actually behind our group, and I was like, "That's my group, like I gotta go." And he was like, "No, you're a terrible person. Like, this is not the way to live." And I was like, I don't want to be stuck back here with not being with my group. And he was just yelling at me so much.
Anyways, that was surprising.
What was surprising for me is after the youth gathering, we went to the Blue Hole. And like a month before, I got my lifeguard certification. And I didn't really expect to use it. Wasn't planning on it. Yeah, and then this guy jumped in, probably like 30 years old. And I had to go in after him because he was drowning.
He made it like halfway, and then he just like, we saw he was kind of struggling. We're
Yeah.
let's get it out. So everyone kind of just
It's
froze
so
for a
cold.
second. It was freezing. He must have just like not realized how cold it was. And so Lois was like at the lower like jump off point. She like jumps in full force to save this man. And he was just, I was like, wow, right place, right time. Okay, so my most surprising thing was probably like the differences between churches, because I've always grown up in Ascension, and we went to this really tiny church in, where was it?
No, Texas.
It was
Wichita Falls.
Wichita Falls. Their organ was like this big, and it was so crazy to see, like, to go from Ascension, which I thought was just like a normal church. Like, everyone has like 200 people in their congregation, or however many people we have, and then to go to this tiny church that has like 2 people in their youth group, or like Addie was saying to me a couple weeks ago, we had only like 10 people show up to Bible study, and she was telling her other youth leaders that, and she's like, you got 10 people, we're lucky if we get 2. So it was just really cool to see like Ascension and see how big it is compared to other churches, but then to go to the youth gathering and see like the 30,000 people and see just how massive the Lutheran community is, because I don't know, personally I feel like whenever I tell people like, oh, I'm Lutheran, they're like, Lutheran? I'm just like, yeah. And like you kind of have to explain it to them and be like, it's like Christian, but like different. I don't know. People get really confused. So it's just really cool to see like that Ascension's kind of like, I feel like it's like a middle ground where it's not like a tiny church, but we have a community that's like, I feel like we're all very close with each other and like we can talk to people in our church. But then there's also that much larger community that I never realized that many youth. That's just the youth, 30,000 youth that were able to go. Imagine the adults, the kids younger than us, that if everyone is able to go, how many people will be there? Like that just blows my mind.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to say one more thing before other questions is this group of young people, and this is only part of our group, so beautifully represented our church and our community that they deserve a huge round of applause for how well they just presented themselves, how well they, everywhere we went, restaurants, churches, the youth gatherings. So I really want to, as a parent watching it, thank you guys for such a great time and really representing us in such an amazing way. So.
Any more questions?
I really enjoyed the photography, and of all of you, and the churches, so different churches, the chancel areas, and how durable they are, and then the geography. That's good. Were all of you photographers?
Yeah, we all took pictures.
Yeah.
Just
We had like
We had-
a group.
Yeah.
We had a
The
photo.
challenging question is, we all saw the sunsets. Did anybody see a sunrise?
yes. We saw a lot of
We went to
sunrises.
the sunrise in New Mexico. It was blocked by the mountains.
You
Yeah.
kind of wake up with the sun because the sun rises and it hits you when it's like already 90 degrees and you're like, I can't go back to sleep now. And your head kind of turns into an oven. So
I actually, when we were in New Mexico near the lake, I popped my head out of my hammock and I had just like a perfect view of the sunrise. Oh, and then also in Sedona, I poked my head. I thought I was watching the sunrise. Turns out it was just the sun beating down on the mountain, making it really, really bright. Because like when I woke up, I was like disoriented. I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I'm going back to sleep now. It was just bright through my hammock, so I was like, oh, that's an awesome sunrise. And then it was bright out, and I was like, oh, that's just the mountain.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
thank you.